Well, listen, I have 5 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. This will be pretty brief. Please feel free. There's only a couple of us in attendance right now. Please feel free to make any comments or ask questions either by speaking up or by doing it in the chat box like Leroy has there. So
I can hear you.
okay, great, thank you. So listen, like I said, I'm gonna get started. If you have questions or comments, make them either go ahead and speak up or put it in the chat box. Really, the biggest thing that I was planning on doing was just trying to having one short little class meeting just to make sure that people didn't have any questions. Right now you should be able to see on my screen week 12. We have this week's reflection, and then next week is our last reflection. Remember, for all 10 of the observations, you should have, if you're up to where you need to be, which I believe both of you are, you should have submitted 8 of them already and have the final 2 remaining reflections to submit of the 10 required observations. Like I said, I believe, I'm going from memory here, I believe both of you are both in great shape. Students who are watching this recording, I guess, remember there are 10 required observations in here. You can do them in, for the most part, whatever order you wanted to. That the only exception was the fake interview, so to speak, which everybody's already done. So week 12 and week 13. Week 14, there's not anything due. That's really for you to prepare for your anchor assessment. But the biggest thing that I've gotten feedback from other classes was they liked the ability to be able to go over the anchor assessment. So Judy and Leroy, I'm going to go ahead and go over that. And I'm recording this session if you guys need to watch any of this again. Obviously, students who weren't able to make it today, you can watch this recording. So look, I believe both of you have taken me for EDA 606 and 608 in the past. Basically, for both of those anchor assessments, a lot of that information from those anchor assessments will work on this final anchor assessment. So like all the other ones, have a title page, a short introduction. All 13 of these, use a heading that is either the identical heading or something very similar to it. If you include all of these, and under each one of the sections, if you describe in detail and able to answer all these, for the most part, you'll do good. The other part of that would be obviously good grammar, punctuation, good coherent, clear, concise writing. So like I said, the title page, the introduction, a short, informative, powerful description. The third one would be the review of the school and community. This should have been from, I believe it's the 608 class that we've already taken together. I believe this is, if it's not exactly, it's very close to one of the sections from 608's anchor assessment. So you should be able to take a lot of that information from a prior anchor assessment and use it again on 611. That was done on purpose. The fourth section is the data analysis. This is where you and the group that you are working with at the school level, where you've collected that information. I know a lot of you that are in public schools chose to, you and your group, look through the TEL data. So this is where you would, talk about whatever data it was what data you used, how it was collected. Once again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, but if it was the TEL survey, describe how the TEL survey is administered, how it was collected, describe what it says, what you learned from it, and all those types of things. Number 5 then, of that information you just talked about in the 4th section from data analysis. And the 5th one, describe the things that stand out, the key findings, describe why it was an issue, different things like that. Number 6, the essential questions, is from past classes. This is the one that I get the most questions about. Just essentially, ask If you were talking to yourself out loud, so to speak, what are some questions that you might ask yourself when going through this process? Things like, what, based on the data, how can we use this information to better, depending on the topic, to create a better environment for our students? Not required, Judy. No, it is not required. But if it's something that you feel like would make what you're trying to determine a little clearer, then obviously feel free to include it. But it is not required. For some of that, if you use teledata and you wanted to share some of the exact data, that would be fine. But like I said, not required. So essential questions, don't overthink that. It was kind of a requirement for the course that essential questions be part of this culminating project, this anchor assessment. But essentially, what questions would you ask yourself? Just list a couple of those, 3 or 4 tops. Number 7, remember all this, this whole process should have been collaborative. So basically, talk about how you've led your team through the review analysis of all this type of stuff. Describe the committee. Do list their names, what role they are, if they're a teacher, a parent, administrator. Obviously, through all this process, we've wanted as many people as possible. Definitely be sure to include the principal you've been working with as well. Describe, how often you guys met, when you met, where you met. I don't necessarily need the minutes, but definitely give a good description of the frequency you guys met, some of the topics that you guys discussed, and some of that stuff. Lastly, number 8, based on all that information that you collected and analyzed, what are your recommendations then based on that? So what would, based on the data, what need is there that needs addressed? And then likewise in number 9, based on those recommendations, this is where you come up with a very detailed description of your action plan on what you do to address those issues. And then the last couple of things, conclusion. I do want a 1-page reflection. That reflection should talk about the whole process of getting to lead a group, going through all the information, your action plans. Definitely focus on the collaborative part on your reflection. Any references that you have, and then artifacts. Like I said, I don't have a lot to cover here. I just know based on the feedback from other courses, specifically 606 and 608, that I quite frequently, and tried to have been intentional about doing this, I was quite frequently getting students saying, I would have liked to have had the opportunity closer to when the anchor assessment was due to go through it, to have the opportunity to ask questions. That's why I'm doing that. I did that, and 2 of you showed up, and that's okay. So for students who are listening to this recording, let's go back to Moodle here. This isn't due for a couple weeks. It is due on Sunday, December the 3rd. Before you go to bed on December the 3rd, that's the last week of the course. Obviously, it's going to take me a little bit of time to grade all of these, but as I'm doing this online meeting here, it's November the 9th. This is due December the 3rd. Please feel free to reach out to me. Shoot me an email at my Georgetown email. If we need to set up a phone call or something, I'm very willing to do that as well. So, also, let's remind everybody, your 45 observation hours definitely should be keeping up with putting those into live text. Once again, describes that under week 15 here. And then get 5 bonus points for completing the course evaluation. So to conclude, for our short meeting here, if you're caught up with, which most of you are, there are a couple of small exceptions. The last remaining 2 reflections of the 10 required observations, there are 10 of them, 8 of them should be done by now. The 9th one should be, the reflection should be under week 12. The 10th one under week 13, and then nothing's due week 14. That was intentionally done for you to be able to work on your anchor assessment, and your anchor assessment is due shortly after Thanksgiving break. There, that week 14 is Thanksgiving, so to speak, as well. break, but due December the 3rd. So 2 reflections remaining. Anchor assessment due. Upload that here. Make sure you're putting the observation hours in the live text, the course evaluation, and that should be it. Let's see, Judy says, how would I attach or present a PowerPoint presentation as an artifact within the paper? If it were me and you wanted to include it, not required, you might refer to that you gave a presentation, but you wouldn't have to. I would probably, how do I explain this? Take those, instead of putting the entire PowerPoint, you might be able to put the like 1 slide at a time. You can put it on, I think you can put it on like 6 or 8 slides a page. You might be able to include that as an artifact at the end of it if you would like. Does that help, Judy?
Yes, it does. I can do that and attach. I wasn't sure. I can just print the sides and put them as an artifact.
Okay. That would be perfect.
Anyway, I know what you're talking about. It works. It's fine.
That's right.
I just was looking at number 13 and it said, artifacts, and I thought, I didn't know if you wanted it as
that's more of a catch-all. I mean, everybody, depending on what their focus is going to be a little bit different. So, I'm thinking out loud. Once again, class, those of you watching the recording as well, there's not a specific artifact that's required. But if somebody wanted to include some, sign-in sheets from their meeting, Judy, you have a good example of your PowerPoint. Some different things like that to include. Maybe somebody did their own survey and they wanted to include what the survey was. If you did your own survey, I definitely think including the survey itself as an artifact would definitely be needed. But I don't know. Can Judy or Leroy, can either of you have any other questions?
No, I think I'm good. I actually do have a survey in form, so I'll just figure out ways to condense them and then just attach them in the paper so they're not super huge.
Okay, that would be great.
That works. I just know, I think it was in 605, we had to, there were some required artifacts we had to have in there, embedded in the paper and all different things. So I just want to make sure I can just attach them for number 13 and then reference them up in the other parts as needed.
Correct.
Is that okay?
That's exactly correct. And I, a little different than 605, I really tried to, although there are no required artifacts, I tried to really spell out through all the sections and then under each section the bulleting for, I would basically say all these little bullets are, mandatory fund requirements, so to speak. So if you address fully and completely everything that's listed here, 1 through 13, and all the bullets, and a good, clear, concise, good grammar, you'll do great. You won't just do good; you'll do great on it. So,
yeah, I actually you answered all of my questions, so pretty much I don't have anything.
Okay, hey, no problem. Well, listen, both of you, thanks for attending our little short session tonight. You know how to reach me at my Georgetown email if you need to get a hold of me. Otherwise, that's all I have, folks. You guys have a great evening.
All right, you too.
All right, bye-bye.